Welcome to the Obstacle Dominator podcast, the show for athletes who want to become their best and inspire others in the process. Here we're going to dive deep into training tactics, race strategy, nutrition, mindset, and everything required to dominate the course and your life. Whether you're tackling your first race or already standing on podiums, this is where you can level up. There is always room for improvement, and it is time to push through those barriers and step it up a level, breaking both the physical and the mental walls to keep progressing. I'm your host, Matt Roberts, OCR athlete, coach, and guide to those committed to becoming healthier, happier, stronger, faster, to maximize their human potential now and always. I'll also be joined by the coaching team who are walking the walk, competing, staying current, and holding themselves to excellence. They are leading by example to inspire others to rise. We also bring on guest speakers who share real stories, real lessons, and proven methods that deliver results in performance, health, and mindset. Let us begin. All right, let's dive in, shall we?
How we doing, man?
I'm doing great. How are you doing, Jake?
Doing well, thank you. It's a fantastic Thursday morning here. Um, yeah, man. I did Chin's new Hercules grip strength day, which was a absolute smash of a. It was great. Um, he keeps upping it, and I don't know how that keeps happening because every time I keep thinking, how much higher can this mountain go? And then next phase will come in, and Chin will be like higher still. So good stuff.
Great, pleased to hear it. I was actually looking over the last podcast that we done. I know we done one that was more off sort of topic and more musical focus, but I'm looking at the one that we did back in December last year, where we actually spoke about physical healing,
Yeah.
mindset, primal living, and incorporating that into sort of day-to-day life. And know also we were talking about sort of like the surgery and stuff like that. So I'd love to, yeah, really catch up. I mean, a lot has happened in 10 months, really, hasn't it, since this last conversation on the podcast. And I think what we've been doing across time, I think this is maybe your fourth appearance on the podcast. It was kind of like post Palmerton and then what emerged from the injury. And then it was kind of like, this is what I'm preparing to do. And it's like, now I've had the surgery and now where am I at and where am I going from there? So yeah, let's dive
Ab-
in.
Absolutely. Yeah, so I guess quick recap. Um just if there's any interest, it would be that during the Palmerton race, I tore my adductor. And it it wasn't like a race ender. It was just like a ow. But as that injury kind of progressed, and I actually went and saw, a doctor for it, turned out the condition that I had was referred to as femoral tibialar torsion, which means at some point in development, your bones, although they grow straight, they don't grow necessarily with a bend or a bow, they grow with a twist, which puts your, a lot of tightness on one side. Um, I had almost zero external hip rotation, which was kind of why Palmerton did that to me. I think it was the terrain, and having to kind of navigate it, and my just hips just not having the flexibility to deal with it. Um, and After we worked for, months, it's the better part of half a year to try to find a non-surgical route, it was determined that there was really only one way to fix this, which was to do 6 osteotomies, which is where they cut and rotate the femurs, tibias, and fibulas, um, one leg at a time. And yeah, as of last July, I'm happy to report that I've had the last of the hardware removed from me, and there is still like a small staple that exists, but that's only because my bones decided to grow over it and claim it for their own. And so that's just me now, but I'll never feel it. Um, and that just kind of goes to show what good some advances in how we can medically and holistically heal bone looks like. I mean, just taking calcium's not enough. You were kind of on the cutting edge of what vitamin D coupled with K2 can do, just as a supplement for anybody. But as it turns out, when it comes to repairing and having just good bone health, vitamin D effectively is part of carrying the calcium to where it needs to go, and K2 will turn it into a one of those bullet trains, and it's just much more effective. So that's kind of what that looked like.
Yeah, it's fascinating, especially the mentioning of the vitamin D and the K2. I actually remember when I was in the military, I was actually an instructor, and the recruits done a study basically. So there was two different platoons, and the platoon that I was like essentially instructing, they were on this vitamin D and K2 protocol. So they were going through all the physical training, as were the other platoon that weren't supplementing. And what they found after 6 months is actually these guys had significantly less injuries than the other one. I mean, this is just one study. I mean, you can go, well, actually, the individuals, this, that, the other, but it's like, well, yeah, notable through having that combination of yeah, that.
Right. Well, and it was something that even my doctor later, after you and I had talked about it, he came back and he was like, "Oh, by the way, there's this stuff you ought to be taking. It's more than just vitamin D, it's do this too." Which I thought was kind of funny and kind of cool that we were already ahead of the curve on that. But but yeah, I mean, so as far as like training's concerned, um, uh, I've started the process of getting back into running, which has been wonderful. I've run more in these last 2 weeks than I have in these last 2 years, which is still, you could tally it up to minutes, but there's a lot of soft tissue and hypertrophy that needs to happen. There was a lot of atrophy in my legs that we just couldn't do anything about. One of the kind of gnarlier parts of the surgery was actually to correct my foot. They had to detach and lengthen my both of my Achilles tendons, which that's a automatic 6 month in a boot type of recovery, which your calves just, I mean, it's amazing how quickly they go away. I mean, unbelievably fast. How quickly atrophy kicks in. Which has been a amazing thing to keep in the back of my head when I wake up and it's rainy and I don't feel like going to the gym. And I'm just like, oh man, if you don't use it, you lose it. Um, Not that taking a break is a bad thing or anything like that, but it's just part of building in that discipline for me. It's just like I've seen it go, and it goes so quickly. So but yeah, yeah. I mean, I'm hoping to. My goal is to get up to, hopefully like about a mile maybe this year, and maybe beyond that. Actual like running on the trail. There is a 5K scheduled in March that I would love to be a part of. A 5K Spartan. And then from there, beyond, beyond, beyond. I mean, it's what kind of blows my mind, and one of the like mental things, one of these, it's a gratitude, and it's also just kind of a realization that every time I would go down for surgery, there would be about a 6 month gap in between procedures. It was right leg insert, right leg, left leg, left leg, and then hardware come out, hardware come out. And every time that would happen, I would be healed enough in between surgeries to get back into the gym and to get back to training. Rehab, starts the day after surgery for these things. I mean, a lot of people mistake the word rehab with recliner, and it's just not true. That's some of the hardest work I've put in. But uh, I keep remembering that like I'm not going back down. And after going down 4 times, it's like now every single one of my gains is like mine. And that's been that's been a wonderful little secret weapon I keep in the back of my head when it comes to not only getting up and getting to it, but goal setting and looking towards the future about what I want to do. And I draw quite a bit of inspiration from people that are in our community and our team. I need to give a big shout out to Chris for, absolutely smashing the Chicago, was it Chicago Marathon? Um, Absolutely smashing it. Um, and what people might not know about Chris, because if you look at his athletic performance and you look at um, what he's accomplished, what you won't know about him is that he's a type 1 diabetic. And I've literally at Palmerton, um, I saw some of his equipment get ripped off of his body because he was just running so hard. And he was like, "Oh, it's okay. I got, I got another sensor back, you know." But what a monster! What a monster that guy! And just what a um, like, you try to find an excuse to lean in to comfort. You try to find an excuse to justify what could be, bad behavior or what you might know as, I really, I know I ought to do this, um, but when you're friends with people like Chris, it makes it very hard to actually find those excuses.
For sure, man. Yeah, gonna get him on the podcast in due course because he's a phenomenal guy. And yeah, this
Yeah,
this recent one of his is absolutely huge. Um, what I'd like to touch on, Jake, is talking about kind of the section that we've not really spoken about is what you've been up to whilst you've been healing over the past year, really. Like, what have you been doing for training? Have you stopped completely? Have you been doing nothing? Like, what have you been doing in the meantime while you've not been able to run and train in the way that you fully want to do?
absolutely. Yeah. I mean, so thank goodness for the, my community because um, I've I've actually managed to have a bit of a different transformation in these 2 years. From it's not quite 2 years. I say 2 years. It's a couple months shy of that. But I have I have not stopped training. I've had to go down for 6 to 8 week long kind of periods in between surgeries. But no, we've just kind of focused on um, what we can focus on, and it's uh, with like chin, kind of understanding what our limitations are as far as legs. We've really been working hard at upper body, and those have been where I've been making the most gains. I mean, even at my peak, um, for example, back when I was running and competing, uh, even then, like my max pull-ups would be like around 8 or 9. And now we're breaking into, 15, 16, sets like that. And just really focused on not only the physical aspect of it, which for a bit of it is also kind of a mental health cope to be able to, be back in the gym and to work hard, being able to see progress made, even though A lot of people might see this as some sort of a stall or a stop. Um, and it really has just felt more like a reshift in focus, um, rather than what I think this might have looked like had I not been privy to that type of mindset. Because I remember at the very beginning of this, it was quite scary because you're kind of looking down the barrel of your own mortality, right? Um, Now, I was 39 years old when this happened, and there was one side of it where the universe was telling me, hey, you're at that age now where you got to start saying no to stuff. You got to start letting things go, because you're actually breaking yourself. And that was a hard pill to swallow. But given the choices that were made and the kind of mentality that we've all had going into this, it doesn't feel like that. It doesn't feel like some great victory of pushing through anything. It just felt like, oh, well, we're just going to work on arms now. Um, and that's what we did. We just worked with what we could, and there's been a quite the transformation, that I've really been enjoying the benefits of. So, so yeah, this really just seemed like 2 years of, needing to put some more work where I've kind of needed it.
And that's such a powerful reframe to the situation because part of us is like kicking and screaming because like, why the fuck did this happen? Like, I didn't want this. I just want to like carry on racing, and it's like, actually, it's made you well relay the foundations and put your body in an even better position. But during that process of healing, you've redirected that focus where there was imbalances, and you've worked on your mindset more and your body composition more, and maybe you've not been running, but that time has now come. So yeah, it's
Right,
really
and
really
nutrition.
positive and awesome to see.
Thank you. Yeah, no, I appreciate that. I mean, it took a village, and that was the other thing too, was nutrition was not. Because again, 6 weeks to 8 weeks down is a long time. Um, and I think it's especially long for people like us who are just naturally very active. I think that um, it's that same thing of like, kind of the romanticized idea of lockdown, where you're like, oh man, I'm gonna get so much done. I'm gonna learn how to knit. I'm gonna bake sourdough. And then you get there and you're like, this sucks. I've seen everything on Netflix and I'm bored. And that's just like you're hours into your first
Mm.
day. Um, so it's kind of funny how the that you have that idea of like what downtime looks like, and it can be kind of, it can be struggling, it can be easy to reach for things that again, you ought not reach for. But I think that maintaining that kind of strict um, nutritional discipline um, was essential in allowing myself to be in a position where I could very quickly just pick back up after at the gym and just kind of get back to work. There was naturally some rust that had to get shaken off. And for example, what I might be able to do a few, a few more sets of before surgery would take a couple of weeks to get back up there. But again, a couple of weeks is not very bad at all.
Yeah, for sure. So yeah, it's just giving you the opportunity really to address other aspects of life. You mentioned nutrition being one of them. Is there any other areas you feel like have developed over the past 10 months or so?
Just I think it's just really really reaffirming um, gratitude and goals. Those are two humongous things, and they're similar, but they're different. Um, but for example, I was, originally supposed to take a trip at some point to Greece. I have a lifelong goal to hike the Appian Way, the road from Rome to Capua. And that opportunity kind of got pushed on the back burner, if you will, until one of my best friends in the world, Doug, reached out and, said, "Hey, I want to do this with you." And the gratitude is the like ability to kind of be able to do that, where 5, 6 days of 20 mile a day hiking actually doesn't seem like it's that impossible a task or that imposing a task. But then the goal setting, I think, because it becomes realistic and it becomes actionable, and really like taking some time to dwell on what it is I want. Before to this surgery, I might have said something like, I want to podium, a Spartan Ultra, something along those lines, which is not something I don't want to do. But those goals have expanded and gone into, I want to take on 100 mile, race one day, and kind of expand what those limits are. Um, and I think a lot of it was just kind of zeroing in on again what you really want, um, and really how to get there, and then that gratitude for the ability to actually do these things, and to do them pretty confidently. And again, like you said, breaking things into kind of parade rest, if you will. Right now, what I'm doing is I'm relearning how to run, and I've got a really great team of people who are very aware of my goals. They're very aware of where I'm coming from, and they understand. So they're helping me to redevelop my gait and to get these habits in early and get these habits in right. And so, if anything, these goals that seem lofty are more achievable now than they would have been, post surgery, even if I had never, if this had not happened to me, if you will, um, it still ends up being a net positive.
Mm, yeah, I love that. I love that. So I think something I took from that was actually you've got a deeper sense of appreciation for many things now, which I don't know whether you took them for granted before or it's just kind of like, well, it's the way it is. But through this healing process, there's actually been a lot of time to reflect.
Yeah, and I think that it was again, it was that initial challenge of mortality, right? I've thought about that a lot. Um, and I thought about how scary it was to potentially be, have the universe tell me that, because how I thought this was going to go was that as I got older, my focus and interests would shift and things would change, like they have previously, like I think a lot of us experience. But this time I was being told that if I run, I will not only am I going to continue to damage myself, is it going to continue to only get worse and worse and hurt more and more, but I've got a pretty grim future already kind of, out there with destroying my hips and knees and needing hip and knee replacement surgery, which even if I was able to stave that off for 20 years and I got it done, it still wouldn't fix the problem because I'd still have twisted femurs and tibias and fibulas. So I think what what it means to actually like kind of not necessarily stand defiant. Um, it's not as much like the plant yourself like a tree and say no, you move. It's more of finding thinking outside the box and using your resources to really to stand like kind of true to like no, I really want this. I got to find a way out of this if there is one to be had. But also like how many people were stopped at that first roadblock and just turned it around and said, okay, well, I guess I'm destined for the couch. And I guess the one thing that I would love to impart on anybody that I interact with is that's just like any roadblock for any race we have. We all face these things. I've never done a half marathon or greater that didn't have some form or another of the wall. And I mean, even the race where I tore my adductor, I finished that race. I had a terrible time of it. And I think there's a video of me crossing the finish line and just kind of giving a thumbs down, like this was a bad one. But but yeah, it's that it's just not letting that first thing, not letting someone else tell you what you can and cannot do, um, and kind of finding your group and finding your people, and and just you know not letting that wall really stop you because I mean even a tall wall can still be climbed over or dug under. Um, so I think that if I think about like what that great fear would be, um, it would be a fear of actually giving into that and just saying, you know what, guys, doctor said I can't do this anymore. I'm just gonna find something else to do. Um, and who knows what that future would have looked like? But I'm 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 really grateful that those decisions were made then that put me where I am here today.
Okay, I think we're back in the game. Hello, hello. I think we're back.
Hey, there you are.
Last thing
There
I
we
heard you
are.
say, Jake, was doctor.
Oh, sorry. So what I was basically trying to get to was that I think there's going to be a lot of opportunities where we're going to have to face scary things. And I think the biggest gratitude I have is the decisions that were made 2 years ago to actually put me in the position now where I don't have to feel like my legs will betray me if I go out there and run. And it's, you know, it's a far harder thing, I think, that first wall that you find where it's, oh, you shouldn't be doing this anymore. You're getting too old. Um, because I think that, at a certain point you kind of forget how old you are. I don't really think about my age very often. And so when somebody kind of puts it in front of me as a barrier, um, that I think the first thing I feel at that is like either anger or confusion because it just doesn't make, although being angry and confused is a great sign of me getting older, but it just doesn't make, it just doesn't make any practical sense because I think we all still feel, uh, a certain way. And um, I think that some people will try to rob that from us and try to tell you that you need to conform with this or that. Um, and again, what I would say to anybody is, find out from everybody what your options are, um, and act, you know, take action immediately. Um, you know, make it make sense. Like for example, even though my diagnosis came in July, it didn't make sense to have surgery until January. Um, but the decisions were made and the action was still taken. Um, and uh, I don't think that there's a whole lot of things that we have the ability to walk away from that would stop us from doing what we're the most passionate about doing. And having that downtime just really just helped me to really hone and zero in on um, not only what my specific goals are, but just how important it is to have them.
For sure, man. Um, some beautiful insights there. Um, I mean, looking back at the Palmerton event, it definitely beat a lot of us up. A few guys come away with some injuries, but I think with that event and what happened, it also gave everyone an opportunity to improve themselves and really reflect. And when the time was ready to act on what felt right, but talking about bridging that gap, like you got really resourceful and you explored different options. You tried this, no, tried this, gave it some time, no, that didn't work. And that was the thing that ultimately led you to going and having the surgery. But I suppose during all of this process, you've had time to reflect, and now actually you see all of these happenings as actually a great gift potentially, because actually it's put you in a great place and there's a lot of growth come from it. But when you sustain an injury and you gave that thumbs down at the end of Palmerton, you're like, nope, this is not good. But actually it's equated to a lot of good and a lot of growth. So it's kind of this painful experience packaged in like gift wrap or something like that.
I mean, and let's be frank, it could have been bad. It could have been the beginning of the end of my story. Um, and I think that that was, something that we all have to kind of face and make a decision on if this is that moment or not. Um, and for me, it just wasn't. It just wasn't time to hang it up. And it the option to not fix this never really happened. And honestly, remembering correctly, I think that I really aggravated that adductor doing like a Bulgarian split squat 2 weeks previous to that race. And
Mm.
the race just that mountain just kind of it was just being brutally honest with me that something was not allowing me to do what I wanted to do. Um, And what I usually tell young runners is that they'll keep finding that like point. Um, Usually it starts with cardio, their breathing, and then they get to a point where like, okay, now it's like your calves go and you push past that point and maybe it's your IT bands and your hips that go, but you're always going to find that next point to improve yourself and to kind of break through and get to that next phase. And I think that that's just what this was for me. My twisted bones carried me over multiple marathons and a couple of ultras before they finally said no. And it was a 10K that took me out.
Mm. Yeah. Yeah. Um, I'm curious to know about like your mentality and thought processes, because I think this would be really, really powerful to explore and share going into the the process of having to make a decision to have major surgery that's going to be a pretty lengthy, disruptive, and painful process. So we just touched on fear a little bit. Like, where were you at? And yeah, what were the things that led you to the decisions that you made?
Yeah, no, that's a great question. I appreciate that. It started as fear, and then it turned into kind of defiance. There's a great I don't know if Chin still has it. Um, But in the span of like 30 seconds, I basically said the F word like 87 times. Like, absolutely not. No, no, no. Like, we're not doing this. No. Like, no. F that, F this, F all of it. Like, we are finding a way past this. And um, I think it's literally when you're standing on the edge of it. And it's like, okay, what's the next move? And it's almost that like knee-jerk reaction, and for me it was just the first thing that came to my mind was no, just no, just not gonna. not gonna do that. Not going to give into this because um I felt like if there's a way past it, that then let's find that way. But it was quite it similar to how like I don't want to say like violent, but you know how like that almost competitive, you know, it it, it it's when that dog kind of starts barking, and I think that we all need that sometimes, to just kind of stand our ground and say no. So um, I think after I made that decision, I started to feel a lot calmer about it because all of a sudden I could then start taking action and taking control. Um, Now that we just moved past that point of yes or no, um, you know,
Mm, yeah. And then in terms of the mindset of like the acceptance and really the process of elimination that led to that, like how was you like going into that process pre-surgery, and then also lead that into kind of on the other side of the different surgeries to where you are now, and what you feel like you've learned, gained, and how you've grown based on that as well.
it's so funny how like a lot of different things come up in life. Pre-surgery, at that point, I was kind of resound in it. I knew what I was doing. I didn't know what recovery was going to look like. I didn't even really know what I was going to look like outside of the surgery. Um, but there was like so many other things too, isn't it? It's just funny. Like I think I was also stressed about some project going on at work, and I was thinking about how I needed to log in and take care of some business. Um, and I think that it was just by the time you're like sitting in the hospital waiting room ready to go, you just feel like this is like it was almost the same thing that I feel before I get like a dental cleaning or um some very minor thing. Um 'Cause also like when it comes to major surgery where they put you down, um, you're not even awake for the scary part, and you're victorious once you start to come to and you're awake again. That was actually the most horrifying part was being put under 4 times. I would I would rather not do that again.
Mm. Um, if you want to, like, I know we had some exchange like in and around like surgeries, and you shared some stuff afterwards, like you saying certain things before you went under. Would you mind sharing that? Because I think it speaks volumes about um, how we handle stressful situations and how we
Oh,
can diffuse that or
I think I know what you're talking about. I would always try to get the OR team to laugh, right? And so I think the best joke I had was as the anesthesiologist was like, "All right, now count, count backwards." I kind of went, "Wait, don't." And everyone turned to me. And I go, "If it's between me and the baby, pick me." And then I immediately fell asleep. I got some I got to hear about that afterwards that it took them a few minutes to kind of the surgery was delayed by like 5 minutes or something. Um, but yeah. Yeah, I was always trying to find ways to just get laughed out of it. That is typically how I defuse things, is I try to there's a way to break up the seriousness of it, and like we're all just people. We all do what people do, and yeah, you're the one with the surgical mask and the gloves, and you're looking very serious right now. But uh, you, you know, it you're just like me. It's just that I'm laying down and you're standing up.
for sure. And it's a really powerful tool. And I don't know whether, from your military experience, you used humor in tough, challenging situations. I was mentioning it to one of the other guys on the team because he's about to go into Spartan Agogi, and I'm going to do like a mindset preparation call. And actually, I hosted a talk to some college students last week. And I just got them to do a simple exercise of like smiling at one another. And like teenagers, you know what I like. It's a little bit weird. Oh, I'm going to smile at my friend and whatever else. But within like 15 seconds, they were all laughing just by like raising a smile. So by adding humor in somewhere as well, like imagine how that's that surgery team went into theater. Like they've just had like a real good laugh
I,
through you doing that. So that actually probably improved their performance as well.
oh no, I love that, and I think that that is exact. So there's nothing worse than hearing someone on the trails just bitching. Like, it's like, man, get out of here. Like, if you don't want to be here, like this was an expensive thing for you to just be up here and whinge, and for me to gotta hear it. Whereas, being funny, like there's nothing better than someone saying something funny on the trail and getting a laugh. I mean, I remember long marches where we would like turn instead of cadence, we would do like the theme songs for like, TV shows and cartoons and stuff just to try to get through that. So if someone's going through a gogi, which is, from what I understand, no joke, um, I imagine that would be a great, even if you have to keep that to yourself, because who knows what the instructors are gonna, do.
Hmm,
But but yeah,
for
I mean, even
sure.
if you just
For
need
sure.
that
And
for your own.
exactly, man. And I shared one of my experiences actually when I was on a promotion course and was out on the ground for like 7 weeks. And me and this paratrooper, we were like, well, fuck it, we'll do the task. And it was just shit task after shit task. And we just was like, so what? Let's go. Let's do it. Like, we're here. Like, nothing's going to change. And actually, I'm keeping warmer in the process. And we'd have a laugh and would be doing all the stuff while a few of the guys laid around and whatever else. And that really got us recognition as well on that course. But yeah, attitude, uh, yeah, and really the behavior that comes off the back of that is going to be, yeah, as such. I mean, if you're upbeat and positive and add humor, then that's obviously going to raise our vibration. Yeah, so emanate that, and also like even if you're not really feeling it, kind of flaunt it and see what it does. I think there's a lot of research to even just like a smile, how that can, even if you force a smile, that can improve your mood by a certain percentage. So yeah, it's very powerful stuff.
No, that's absolutely true. That they taught us that with like long runs, like just smile, and it does kind of help. But it's to add to your point. Um, I think that where things get the scariest and where maybe things get the darkest is when we get tunnel vision and we get this tunnel vision into this one singular circumstance we're in. Um, I feel like that's where people kind of that's when you hear about people kind of giving up. That's 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 that shared mindset of just, tunneling on this one thing. And I think, you know, having humor or having a mantra or having anything to just kind of allow you to zoom out on yourself. Like, this person that's doing a gogi or anybody like doing a hurricane heat or any kind of endurance event, it's like have something to remind you that you want to be there. Like no matter how much this moment hurts. Um, it's something I tell people when they're like getting their first tattoo is like, it only hurts when you're in the chair. you know, no matter where it is. It only hurts when you're in the chair. And once you step outside the doors, then it, maybe at worst it's like a nasty sunburn for a couple of days, and then it's fine. But I think that we get very hung up on the pain of the moment, and humor can definitely pop you out of that, I think, amongst other things.
Yeah, definitely, definitely. So it's a very like what do we call it? Like a present moment, kind of like a right thing or right now thing um, that's going on. And often when we're in that, we can't see a way out, or if we see a way out, we're like, well, how long is this going to last for? And we're ever so much focusing on the pain of the situation versus actually translating that into something that's more positive and upbeat. I mean, we can use the pain as a driving force, but we can also use the pleasure, the reward to take us out of that negative state and space. And I think it's finding balance between both of them. Um, and I think another thing, like touching on like the age thing, like ageism and beliefs around that as well. When I spoke to a few of the guys earlier on in the week, and I know certainly we've done a podcast on talking about age and a number of guys that are in the community that are in the 40s and 50s and some beyond, and how they're performing. And it's like whatever you're experiencing right now can be improved. Like if you're not happy with where you're at, do something about it, because even if you make a 1% increase in one of those areas, you're better than you are in this moment, rather than just accepting, oh, it's age and whatever else, and succumbing to that. A great story I'm telling quite frequently recently is this woman who was 75 years old, and at 75 years old she come across the sport of fencing, and she took part in this for many many years, and it obviously improved her strength, her balance, her coordination, and that had a knock-on effect to different attributes of life. She actually lived to 125 years old. Like, so how powerful is that? It's never too late to start something new. And if you start the right thing or the right things that incorporate the body and the brain into it, you can really, really extend lifespan. And isn't that the ultimate goal? Versus a lot of people, I've even heard dudes that are like 30, it's like, oh, it's all downhill from now. Well, imagine how that mindset, the psychology that's behind that, is going to affect everything in your physical reality. Of course, you're going to start to take a decline, because that belief will then become reality, because that's your perception, versus actually not listening to any of that shit, never fucking accepting, not fucking surrendering to that, and actually going, what is this situation trying to show me? All right, if I'm low energy, why is that? Let's have a look at the inputs. Let's have a look at how I'm sleeping, how I'm eating. Yeah, if my body's not where I want it to be, yet again, look at the inputs. And as soon as you change those inputs, the outcomes become a lot different. But we have to be self aware and aware of our environment in order to do that. And when we do that, and as we've seen in the community, like people in their 30s can be better than they were in their 20s. I'm speaking to Jack Coates last night, and he's like, I'm better in my 40s than I were in my 20s. Yeah, and then I look
Yeah.
at myself and athletes. It's like I'm mid 30s now. I'm going to be better in my mid 40s than I am in my mid 30s. Why? Consistency, the mentality, yeah, and just having some fun with it, and really focusing on progress and growth without crushing myself. So it really comes down to choice, I think.
It
Awareness.
does, and just kind of, and I love that, and I think that that's incredibly important. I think that also like something that we can impart on our kids is that same like work and reward type of mentality. A couple of months ago, my daughter, who's been learning guitar since January, had her first showcase, and as we were kind of prepping for that, there were days where it felt like I was kind of not necessarily dragging her through it, but she didn't really want to practice. And it was, she's kind of sick of this song. She's been playing it over and over and over again, right? Um, and even the day before, the day of the showcase, um, she's just kind of not focused and she's just kind of not doing it right. And, um, you know, she's like, I don't want to do it. And I'm like, well, you have to because everyone's coming and we're doing this. She she had a crowd of like maybe 60 odd people, and she absolutely crushed it. At 8 years old, she absolutely smashed this really difficult song, um, with really weird transitions and a lot of advanced techniques. And what was so cool about it was that the next week, when it started to go into practice time, she was just zeroed in, and she already had her next song like, picked out, and she just that that like look at what you get, because she loved standing up there, and you could just tell in her face that she like had that, oh, I get it now kind of look. Um, once she finished up, she knew she did a good job, and then everyone started clapping. I think and then, no one would shut up about it, including me, including now. Um, but that's something that we can kind of also impart, not just on our kids, but like just on our friends and just anybody that you interact with, is like, um, try to put yourself in a position where you're looking behind your shoulder and you're saying thank you to yourself for making good decisions back then.
Mm, yeah, super, super powerful. So it's like the experience and the success that come from that actually propelled her into, yeah, like, yeah, being more dialed in and more focused. And it's really, really fascinating how those wins can, much like we've been saying with the mentality, like if you keep that positive mentality, um, yeah, it's going to be like contagious and that can be carried forward. But then equally, it's like, imagine if she didn't have the success. It's interesting how an individual can handle that. I know for me, like if I don't have a success, that makes me want to dial in more. It's like, oh, fuck that up. Okay, try again. Oh, I fucked that up. Try again, and so on and so forth. So I think it's very dependent on the individual and where they're at. We kind of need to go through both. We need to experience success, but we also need to experience not doing things well and having setbacks and experiencing a little bit of failure. But are we really failing if we don't stop and we just keep attacking it? Or is it actually failure is achieved when you actually just quit and you give up? But all of these things are a part of the journey. I think I was speaking to my nephew Jack, who's just done really, really well in the UK National Series. I'm going to get him on the podcast at some point. But I said to him, like, this year for you in competition and last year, would you experience what success feels like? Yeah, you're going out there, you're winning, and you feel fucking incredible for it. But then the last race he didn't perform as well as he could, and he took a second place. And I was like, you need to you need to be aware that over the coming years, you're not going to be gifted easy wins. You need to work for it, but actually experiencing these setbacks, these failures, these losses are going to make you a fucking great athlete and a phenomenal winner and a champion. So we need to kind of go through it to grow through it versus always just kind of being gifted the easy thing, because that can make us complacent. And therefore, if we take our foot off the gas, then we're not going to be progressing as much. So it's always looking for the next thing. Like, yeah, I come across a quote through something I was reading yesterday, and it was like, don't rest on your laurels, basically meaning don't ride off your past successes. Yeah, always be looking to improve yourself in all these areas of life.
Absolutely. I mean, we forget things that happened yesterday. We forget. Um, and it's not that those things that we did yesterday aren't important, but having that focus on what you're doing now. I mean, I think that anytime you start to accept the status quo, that's kind of, for me, the beginning of the end. Um, and
Mm,
and I completely agree with you in that, failure is just as important as success. And just kind of learning like what that what those things feel like. I think that the lesson is the same in both of them. You got to put the work in. Um, and you yield, I put the work in and look at how good this was, or I didn't put the work in and look what happened. Um, and they're kind of teaching the same lesson, but I think it's important that we all understand that because that's just how we do, like you said, and just take control, find those controls, take control, and then we kind of master our own destinies by, you know, for example, my need to run that 5K in March is the exact same need to, maybe in a year and a half's time, run a 50 miler again. Um, and these are all the same decisions that I need to make today. And those are just really more reflective of milestones to ultimately end up, hopefully the goal, right, is to leave behind a pretty corpse. Um, but I think that just I mean, I joke when I say that. I think the goal is to wake up and feel good, and to feel good about yourself and to feel good about what you're doing, and to enjoy your present life, because of good decisions made in the past and exciting things coming in the future. I think that that's how we keep that balance. And it also allows us to suffer through the tough times. The guy going through a gogi will probably be thinking about that last victory second for the majority of their time in that space, right? Because that's what the goal is. Um, but that's why your advice to try to enjoy those moments and find enjoyment in those, in those spaces is so important. I can't tell you how many races I've done where I remember the starting line and I remember the finish line and I don't remember the race, because I think I spent most of that race thinking about the finish line as opposed to thinking about the race. And I think that having that presence is also, uh, that's this, why we're doing something is to, if it's the right thing, it's to benefit us now, um, and later, right? To kind of serve both of those things. But yeah, I mean, I feel like if I had not gone through what I went through, I don't know that I would understand it as well as I do today. Um, because, you know, I hadn't been faced with that. It's one of my kind of, I wouldn't even call it like philosophies, but something that's also very much a pet peeve of mine, um, is, people who just take themselves too seriously, right? Who don't know how to
Mm,
have fun with life, um, and are just too self-important. Um, and I think that pe people can fall into that. I think that sometimes maybe others can elevate somebody into a position where they feel like that. There could be any number of reasons why somebody feels this way, but it's every bit still a pet peeve of mine. Um, and I get that from my mom. Um, she was terrible to take to a funeral. Someone, if she was gonna laugh. Um, but um, but yeah, I think that going into surgery, especially that last one, and just, having kind of a good attitude about it, because it was hardware removal. So again, the scariest part is going under, which, um, man, I'm glad I'm done with that. Um, and I mean, I think that there are worse statistics for people who get up and, like me, like drive to work in the morning, but still, it's such a release of control, kind of like being a passenger in an airplane, where that fear is something that, you kind of have to deal with. Um, but definitely worthwhile, and definitely, and I think we talked about this too, but uh, you and I are not quick to jump to surgery for most ailments, right? I think that we share a mind in that we want to explore non-invasive ways to treat ourselves, or to be treated as much as possible. Um, and so when all parties are agreed that like, well, we got to do surgery on this, it becomes pretty definitive and pretty uh, real in that this is the solution. And what's cool is that now a lot of the things that we investigated leading up to this, we can start to implement. And so, organizations like the Foot Collective, Red Light Therapy, um, there's even, there's some uh, exploration of other things like, cryotherapy and, I mean, even just getting back into like a yin style yoga has been, huge. Um, and that's it's weird, being back in the gym now. Um, it feels like when you move away from a town for a long time, and then you move back, and it's like familiar but a little different. And it's kind of fun because it's kind of a lot of um, I've forgotten about a lot of maybe some of the reservations that I might have had. And what I mean by that is I, you kind of put away a lot of limiting factors that, I didn't realize I was assigning myself. And it's because I'm going into this so kind of unknown that you just get after it, like a newborn babe, if you will, and enjoy that, you know, how many pull-ups can I do? And you do it, and then you look back and you're like, oh wow, that was like five more than my previous best, and what was really stopping me last time. Um, so it's still really great to get up, even though getting up at 4 is tough. It's still really great to get up and be back in with that culture as well and that part of living. So so yeah, all around, I mean, um, was it it's a surgery that I wouldn't wish upon my worst enemy, as far as needing to get it, but I would say that if somebody found themselves in a situation where they needed to get it, I would encourage, talking to, just being very picky with your doctor, with your surgeon, and trying to reach out and find some people who have undergone this thing. And that's kind of one thing that I would love to be for somebody else if it ever comes up, is a resource. Because the worst part about this surgery, as you know, Matt, was we didn't know what to expect. There was literally no one to talk to. Um, Kind of as a funny aside to kind of highlight that, um, several times now I've spoken with people who are in the kind of ortho adjacent world, right? And in this one example, um, a coworker's daughter was getting into, um, they're finishing up their education and like moving towards becoming an orthopedic surgeon. Um, and I was telling her about what I went through, and she was like, "Huh, that's interesting. Oh, I'll see if I can't remember her daughter's name, but I'll see if she um, knows anything about that. That's curious." And literally the next day, this woman like grabs my shoulders and is like, "Tell me everything." Like, she wanted, "Do you have X-rays before and after?" Like, all of a sudden it became this big deal, and it was because this condition and this surgery is not something that everybody gets, and not something that everybody's even aware of. And so it was exciting for this young, student to kind of, interact with someone who had been through it. Um, Given just kind of it's not like the rarest thing in the world, but it's certainly, what I will say is that there's one orthopedic surgery center here in Houston, one of them, and it's a specific, hospital brand, if you will. And the statistic that I was led to believe was that one hospital center, not hospital system, hospital center, did 100 knee replacements a week, which is
Wow.
insane. So I guess it was funny. My surgeon was telling me about this, and he goes, "You know what I wish, Jake?" And I was like, "What's that, Doc?" He goes, "I wish I invented the the current mechanism for for knee replacement, because man, that guy is sitting on some money." Um, and I thought that was kind of funny, just how just how common it is, as opposed to this. But yeah, I would love to um, you know be that for somebody, and at the same time, um, kind of try to, in the back of my head, demonstrate that to me, this wasn't the beginning of a limiting factor in what I want to do for athletic performance, but this is this is removing the limiting factor that I had this whole time. Um, and now I feel like I'm kind of live without a net. So, um, yeah, I don't know if that's a hot take or a weird sort of thing to say, but it doesn't feel that way. It feels like that's, and we talked about this before. That was the whole point of this back 2 years ago when this journey started. So, yeah, man, I'm grateful to be on the other side, and we also decided um, that even though we had to do some pretty heavy modification, it made there was value in staying with the program and being coached um, throughout this process. And man, am I grateful for that, because having some accountability during recovery and structure made it really feel like, even though there were some pretty disruptive moments, um, we weren't really pumping the brakes on anything at all. We were just, changing lanes. And I'm glad that, one of the things that, I was told by surgeon and some other folks, was that they were uh, really glad that, I hadn't gained a whole ton of weight, and, you know, walked out of this in a worse position. As a matter of fact, I'm pretty sure that I'm in a better position now than I was going into it, um, physically speaking. Um, and it's really allowed me to kind of open up the ripcord and just run with it. So my current PT session is brutal, because my current PT, who you helped me find, is brutal. And it's not just, stretch until you die. He's got me running, he's got me jump roping, he's got me doing all these, really um, pretty taxing, calisthenic activities. And it's really looking like I'm going to have that first mile this year, which is a
Mm.
huge, motivator. Because I feel like once I crack that first mile, that's really the beginning of you know this timeline of goals that I've set for myself. I want to do a 5K in March. Want to get a half marathon by the end of the year, and then up and up and up and up. I've got my eyes on a 100 miler, but you know that's that's where I'm sitting now, and it's been a wild ride. I'm just really glad for the team that I have, that's been willing to be on this ride with me. Um, it's been pretty amazing, and it's also really helped me understand that difference between, people in your corner and then like that Kafka-esque, like for some people I turned into a bug. You know what I mean? For some people, this was, you find out when you lose your utility to somebody, um, you know, I think that was a pretty powerful lesson that I took. And I love to tell this story, and I might have told this story before. So if I did, please stop me or um, let me know. But I was also going through some, some relationship hiccups, and Melissa, my partner, she I love to tell this story, and this was kind of that moment where I was like, "Oh, I'm gonna put a ring on this." Um, she had We had just started dating early on, and I had this surgery in like February, right? And I mean, after three broken legs, right? You're pretty useless. Um, a week after my surgery, Melissa had um, stomach surgery, and she literally came to my house after her surgery, laid in bed with me, and I was like, oh, at some point I was like, I'm thirsty. I'm gonna get up and get a. And she looked at me like I was crazy, and she was like, what are you doing? And she got up and she got me a drink, and I was like, this woman just went through what she went through. I mean, I can see the incisions, I can see this, and her instinct was to still take care of me, and
Mm,
that was like, you know, after being in a situation that was you know that Kafka turning into a cockroach kind of a thing. Um, it is Kafka, right? It wasn't Nietzsche. Yeah, I can't remember. It's very early for me. I apologize, but uh, yeah, you realize who's really on your team. You know what I mean? And it's not that you ever want to put the people in your circle through a test like that, but when that presents itself and they just absolutely excel, um, it really like, we kind of became something more powerful that day. And that's only gotten stronger and stronger. And yeah, you really just you learn who's really on your side.
mm. Yeah, there's been so much growth, Jake, in the past 2 years, but that's come from a lot of challenge, really, hasn't it? All these challenges have been presented to you, and then you've you've tackled them, and then here you are in a phenomenal place. Yeah, body, mind, relationship, yeah, your overall lifestyle. So it's a phenomenal place to be starting from. And you mentioned the team, and I mean the team's part of it, but you've created the team that you have around you. You've created the people because of the choices that you've made. So yeah, I encourage you to keep doing that, and hopefully, because I know many people struggle to reach out for support and help. I hope, yeah, this inspires other people when they're going through challenging times to actually get the help that they need. Yeah, because it will help them lean into these uncomfortable situations and truths more. Um, and also throughout the journey, being supported to allow you to keep going. I've had a conversation with a couple of people recently, and I understand like logistically and whatever else, if we're going through challenges, there's kind of a right time to begin something. But often what we can do as human beings is push things off into the future too much. And I know when we're speaking about your story, we explored all the avenues possible before going down the surgery route. Um, but after that, there was really no delay. It was just a case of pulling the trigger, going whole hog into it, and then here you are 2 years later, ready and in a phenomenal place. But I find a lot of people can push stuff off into the future. Um, but what I say to that is like, there's no better time than now to continue to work on yourself, and you've done that throughout the whole process. And I mean, there's other guys in the community that have done that as well. I can think of a handful of people that have got injured or had to have surgery, but using the support, using the accountability, and drawing all on different people's knowledge and expertise holds you accountable and keeps you on track so that actually you can move through the processes as fast and as bearable as possible. And then, yeah, puts you in good stead.
Yeah, no, I appreciate that so much, and uh, it's my circumstance kind of just made sense to me. And I don't even know that I necessarily thought of it as deeply as that at the time. Um, and I wonder what that would have looked like. But those things were revealed to me. And I think that that was just, putting a little faith in some people, um, and having that gamble pay off. Um, and I think just being able to kind of recognize what is help and what is not. Um, you know, um, but absolutely, I think that and there's a couple of things that come to mind. I was just using Mitch's analogy today. Um, the pain of progress, the pain of regret, and I think you kind of speak to that as uh, it's going to hurt. But is it going to hurt now when you are in control of this and you are the one making this happen, or is it going to hurt later? And is it going to be um, the type of thing that you look back on and that pain doesn't go away. I wish I had done this. I wish I had done that. Um, and Another thing is just, like you said, taking as much immediate action as you can. Um, Even when the action is to come up with a plan or just write something down or create a calendar reminder to do something. Um, but that can help you get out of any kind of, death spiral that your head is trying to take you down, um, just by seizing control of it. And yeah, I think that it's great for people in my position. I'm really lucky to have found my group and to you know to have like-minded people. And I would invite anybody to give it a try. Just talk to somebody and don't you're alone if you know you are if you choose to be. Um, and you can find people. I mean, me and you have met face to face once, which was awesome, but we've been in the relationship that we're in for years and years now. Um, Technology allows that. Um, and, you just kind of have to invite that in. So, yeah, I think that, you know, most people just want to try to be as helpful as they can. Um, and you're going to find that in community, and it's got to be smaller. Our cities are way too big for this. We all find our little pockets, our little groups. Like, I even joke about, I've got a very large family in Tennessee, and I mean, like, so big that, like, cousins and second cousins and things like kind of click up when there's any kind of reunion, and there's people that'll be there the whole time that I'll never interact with because we just never get around to it. There's just so many people. But even in family, even sharing like names and lineage, you still kind of click up within that group if it's too big. Um, so finding your kind of finding your very specific people. And I definitely feel like I found that. And I would encourage anybody to seek that out. Um, because, if you're an individual, find your group of individuals. It's out there. And just, it would have, I feel like in this instance, for my circumstance, it could have been easy for me to be a victim of circumstance. Um, but, you know, we said no. We said no to that. And, we pushed through and we found and we exploited what we could do. And yeah, I mean, it's landed me in a great place today, and I'm super grateful for it. And even though I had to pay the pain of progress, I'm not paying the pain of regret. I'm not looking back and wishing I had done something differently. Um, and to me, if you can look over your shoulder and feel relief, I think you're winning. And trying to think ahead with hindsight is that's ultimately the goal. And I'm not going to claim that I get it right all the time, but man, I'm glad I got it right on this one because this was a pretty big one.
That's it. And set conditions for a fucking beautiful future now, really, and more progress and bigger goals and everything, really. And I think, yeah, overcoming something like this physically has improved your mentality and vice versa. So I think what we're speaking to isn't just about the physical stuff; it's about the mental as well. And often that can be the barrier, isn't it? It's like when we're holding ourselves back from something and playing the victim and not really creating what we truly want and desire. That comes down to self and the actions that we take or don't take. But I think what we're getting at here is it becomes a little bit easier if you kind of raise your hand and ask for a bit of support, lean into a bit of momentary discomfort and see what that does to open you up to opportunity and progress.
Absolutely. I mean, yeah, absolutely. The mental part of it is, I think just having, going into everything with that kind of competitive and athletic mindset, um, and challenging the status quo, which, I always encourage everybody to do all the time, right? Um, Even when finishing a project, it's like, okay, now what can we do to improve this? Um, and yeah, just not. I think we conventionally believe that as we get older, we degrade, and and I don't necessarily believe that anymore. And I think that I did at one point. I think many people do, is that it gets worse as you get older. Um, but for me, you know, after years of alcohol abuse and running around at 330 pounds and just, being told by my doctor, hey man, I hope I see you next year for your physical. I might not. Um, and then hearing about people, um, just fall from this earth because of underlying health things that, looked very similar to what I had. Um, I think that for me, life has gotten better as I've gotten older, and I don't think that that's something that's unique to me. And I think that that's something that we can all kind of try to accomplish. Um, my relationships have gotten better, my physical health has gotten better, my mental health has gotten better, um, and I think it's mostly because I don't know. I'm a pretty curious person, and I like to ask questions a lot. Um, and I don't know. I just kind of believe that why shouldn't it be that way? And if it can be that way, what can we do to make it that way? And that's really the if you're making decisions in pursuit of making your situation better, um, I think that even though you might stumble on your way up, you're still like climbing that mountain and you're still making a better
Mm,
future for yourself. Um, and just constantly, challenging the status quo and just trying to find a better way. Um, and yeah, just I don't know what happens once we're done here, um, but I'm learning more about what here is and what it means to be here, and just how important it is
Mm.
to appreciate that, um, and to really just have that, you know, balance all those things and just have that presence. But um, you know, being present doesn't mean disregarding the future or ignoring the past. It's a healthy blend of all these things, and making good decisions today so that your yesterday is something that you can be proud of, and your tomorrow is something that you can look forward to. Um,
Mm.
and I mean, I know it sounds like I'm trying to sell a book, but I'm not. Um, it's easier than that. I couldn't fill a chapter with this. Um, just prioritize yourself, people. Just, I mean, that's it. Chapter one, prioritize yourself, you know.
Mm. Speaks volumes. Yeah, it really does. Yeah, prioritize yourself and always have a sense of purpose. I find a lot of people get to the age of 30 and then I think it's a slippery slope from there, but it's really not. Like you become better, more rounded in every aspect if you choose to. But if we have a belief and tell ourselves a story that reinforces the decline, then that's what's going to happen. But if you don't accept, then continue to grow forward. Like you see a lot of people hit retirement age and that's it. They got maybe 30, 40 more years of life left, but it's a poor quality of life because they're not actually doing anything with that. And then that leads to more degradation. So,
Yeah.
yeah, we all have
Well,
the
and
power of choice and just choose to be better.
yeah. Well, and like you, Matt, no one's going to be a better dad to your kids than you. Nobody. No,
Mm,
for however many people there are on this planet, there's a lot of us. Nobody's going to do a better job of that than you. So you got to make sure that, if you want to, you want to be there for them, because um, the only thing you can do, because you can't set them up to graduate to having someone who's going to be a better dad, because that person just doesn't exist. So the only thing you can do is set them up to be ready for when you're not here anymore. Um,
mm,
and I mean, that's the last lesson that we teach our kids. But yeah, I mean, you've got to prioritize yourself, um, for the sake of your community, for the sake of the people that are counting on you, for your loved ones. I mean, it sounds kind of selfish on the surface, but think about, who you are, and maybe who you mean to others, and why it's so important that you've got to look after yourself. Um,
mm,
and I invite people again, to look at their different communities, because many of us in our group, for example, tend to be, kind of pillars within their family structures and um, their individual communities, and it gets hard to not have someone to lean on when everybody's leaning on you. Um,
mm,
and so you kind of uh, are able to find people that you can kind of take turns, having those vulnerable moments, but then walking away and being able to be stronger and be better, um, for the people that are counting on you. And yeah, I mean, it's it's just kind of a, you said purpose, and the first thing my head came to was, my daughter Alice, um, my partner Melissa, my purpose. Um, you know, um, who am I living for? Um, and I'm living for, uh, it's it, priorities, I think, are everything in this world. And what kind of drive the decisions that you make, and even how you might feel about a circumstance. But um, yeah, I mean, if you just gotta kind of be that person, and sometimes you're forced into that position, and other times it kind of occurs more naturally. But yeah, I mean, find your people, um, and let's be better about looking after each other, because right now, I think as a whole in society, we're really terrible about that. Um, and I
Mm,
think that, we can all kind of be the change that we need to see. Um, and a lot of things going on in the news and the world and everything, not to get specific, but like it can be horrifying. And one of the more dreadful things that you have to contend with is that there's, unless you are a very particular person, there's very little that you can do to change the situation on a global scale, or on a national scale, a state scale, a province scale, a city scale. Um, but you can try to influence those around you to, you know, be a certain way, to act a certain way, and to just really genuinely care about somebody and care about your people. Um, and I don't know. I'm hoping that maybe that might take a grassroots, hold, and we can all calm down a little bit and get back to living life and looking after each other.
for
They
sure.
um
It starts
they
with
say
I,
that
like if everyone focused
right,
on self.
right. I mean, it's funny, that's so having had, two broken femurs, I can appreciate the archaeological um, evidence of a society is healed femurs. When you see evidence of a person who has healed femurs, you are looking at someone who lived within a society, because of what it takes for someone to do that. Um, and yeah, yeah, we can still be that. We can still take care of each other, look after each other. It's not, um, you know, it looks different when you're actually doing it, as opposed to when the way people talk about it, I think.
For sure, for sure. Start with self. If everyone focused on themselves, the world would definitely be a better place, wouldn't it? And I spoke to some guys at an event this weekend, and I was like, just prioritize you and watch how that transforms everything and everyone around you by just simply improving yourself. And then when we dig into like the bigger picture goals and why we want to achieve the things, obviously we want to do it fundamentally for ourselves, but most likely what it turns out to be is we want to inspire other people, we want to help other people, we want to leave a legacy, and that's everything from our children, our family, our partners, people in our wider communities. It's all entwined. So it's like focus on you, and you put yourself in the best possible position to help other people, humanity, whatever that may be. And also it drives us more if we have a bigger picture goal and understand the reasons why of having a goal that is much larger than just self. So you've got the internal motivation and you've got the external motivations from helping other people as well. So it's all entwined. But yeah, like we said, it starts with self, it starts with I.
Absolutely. And that's those are lessons that I want to impart on my kid. Is I want her to prioritize herself. Um, and I need, that comes through demonstration. Um, and understanding why it's important, and like kind of what the implication of that is, and then what the results of that are, and just kind of what that looks like. So yeah, no, I think that that's huge. I mean, um, and yeah, I just I'm just really grateful to be in the position I'm in right now. Um, And I'm, having said that, I will continue to challenge the status quo and challenge myself and see if I can make my situation better and better and better. But that's why these snapshots and these kind of, why we take progress photos, right? Um, it's hard to see the little progress day by day, but then pull it apart by a few months or years, and holy cow, transformations happen, and that's physical and mental and just positional. That's everything. So, comparing against yourself and just kind of, you know,
Mm,
trying to move in the right direction. And just by doing that kind of with some method, um, you will be more successful than you would otherwise.
100%. Powerful stuff. Jake, is there anything else you want to touch on, go over, talk about while we're here on this episode?
Um, I feel like we've covered it. I selfishly took, 2 blocks for this one topic. Um, Unfortunately with technology errors, but no, I mean, I think that kind of that's kind of all that I had in my head, at least. I think, just, folks, just be good to yourselves, and just, look after number one, um, and be somebody, worthy of having that community and having these people. Um, just try to be that person. Um, and it, I promise it will make things better. And it will strengthen relationships, and it will do all those things, and it costs nothing to just go into it with you know, uh, a mindset of I want to be a little better today than I was yesterday. And it's a battle of millimeters, you know, and hopefully you can find some like-minded people, um, because that helps too. But yeah, it starts with I. I love that.
Mm. Yes, indeed. Well, thank you so much for coming back on and sharing your journey and your story and all your wisdom. And no doubt you'll be back on in due course, and we'll give another update. And you're looking better, feeling better, and conquering more stuff. So I'm excited for what's ahead,
Uh,
man. And yeah, just yeah, hats off to you. Like it really, really is. I'm excited for what's ahead. Like you're on mission. You're on your path, man. And yeah, great things are ahead still.
Brother, I appreciate you so much, and yes, I am so grateful for our community that we have, um, and yeah, just looking forward to it. I will hop on and filibuster anytime you would like.
Perfect. Sounds great. Right, Jake. Have a beautiful day ahead, and we'll chat soon.
You do the same. Take care, sir.
Bye bye. Bye.
Bye.
That is it for today's episode of the Obstacle Dominator podcast. Thank you for listening. If you've gained value from this episode or any others, all we simply ask is you share that with one other person. This one simple share could be the breakthrough that they need to get unstuck and start making progress again, and support more athletes to become healthier, happier, stronger, and faster human beings. If you feel called, please leave a review, tap the stars, give us a rating, head over to YouTube and subscribe, or just simply follow the show. These simple action steps go such a long way in helping us reach more athletes over time, and would love for you to be part of that. Proximity is power. If you are an athlete that's ready to take your performance up a level, then join us over on the OCR School. This is a community where you can surround yourself with the right people as you learn and as you rise. Learn from athletes who are not just talking the talk, but walking the walk, getting results, body and mind, everyone from first-time finishers to podium winners and champions. Until next time, keep training hard, keep living prepared, keep dominating the obstacles in life and in competition.